There we go. Okay, so I believe that I am live, and I'm just going to quick post something here. There we go. All right, so okay. So who am I? My name is Andy, and I like to do things related to cutting edge shit. So, sorry, vulgar language. DN, VM, use 1.0.0-beta 8. I know there's some issues with this. It's all still beta. All right, so ASP.NET 5, and what is it, and what's going on with it? So ASP.NET 5 is the latest and greatest upcoming change to ASP.NET. It is their attempt at cross-platform and all sorts of other fun stuff. I won't get into that too much. You can look at it a bit on your own. So what are we doing today? I have wanted to do this for a few days now. It's just a quick project. Hopefully I can get it done in like an hour or so. Shit, what do I want to name this project? So the project is going to be a storage service, primarily going to be used as a Docker container. The idea is to build a REST interface that has a storage service associated with it, so you can CRUD items in and get items out very easily. The overall idea is that the persistent layer abstractions for a storage system can be stored in this one little container. You talk to the container, it could store it in AWS, it could store it in the file system, it could store it in Google Drive, whatever adapter you'd like to create for it. And hopefully, if people like this, they will start to create more adapters for it and things like that. But for now, I'm going to just kind of do a skeleton build of what I want. And what I want is a REST interface that you can create, update, retrieve, and delete from. When you create an item, you'll get back a GUID that represents the ID of that item. You'll use that for retrieval. You can secure an item with a password that you would need to then specify as a header value, unfortunately, but you could add SSL to make that good. So I'm still just kind of thinking about this, but let's look up some storage synonyms, because I like to come up with clever ways to express the name of my application. Let's call this one I like stash, but that's already a thing. I like stockpile. Let's call it a stockpile because that's kind of what it is. It's an unorganized accumulation or hoard of stock. So let's call this one stockpile. Stockpile. And let's go ahead and add MIT license. You can follow along with me if you'd like. and we'll have a great time. So, make an empty repository, clone it. Whoops, there it is. Okay, actually, since this is going to be all magical and everything, going to put it in public. So, creating a .NET 5 application, fairly simple, straightforward. This one's going to be a web service. It's going to be very small, so I'll just do web application. I want to store it in this create directory for solution. Stockpile. Okay. I hate this. Visual C. I'm actually going to just create an empty solution. Can I do that? Just trying to name the solution. Blank solution called stockpile. Put into that directory. Force it. There it is. Perfect. Exactly what I wanted to do. So let's add a new project. And remember here, people, I'm going to try to do this as fast as possible because my girlfriend told me to be productive today, and I should be doing some other stuff around the house. But I just had an itch here to do this. So, web API or empty? Let's do a web API. I don't want to host it in the cloud. So web API. Perfect. Let's see what happens. I haven't done this in a while, especially with Visual Studio 2015. I ported all my old web API stuff to ASP.NET 5 a little while ago. Boy, was that fun. So the first thing you're going to notice with this is just the difference in the layout. We've got a projects.json file. The projects.json file is going to contain all of the fun jazz related to running the application. These are our dependencies. Adding external dependencies will also do neat stuff. Project README, don't need that anymore. Startup, let's take a look. The startup here is kind of the class we use to initialize everything, and we're going to do that. And then I'm also going to add a new project, and we're going to do a class library in Stockpile called Stockpile API Test. And this is going to be our testing library. Now, I'm going to have to open up another application of mine and copy some values over because I can't recall how to do this properly right off the top of my head. I do know that I don't care about DNX Core. It seems to always have issues and cause me problems. But maybe I'm just missing something. So I'm going to get rid of DNX Core on both of these, and that's going to take out the dependencies on it. And that way I can use certain types and not have to worry about it all that much. So we're going to call this one a API test, and I'm going to take a look at a couple of things that I do in my API tests on another project, which primarily are going to be the XUnit dependencies required to run unit tests in ASP.NET 5. Right now there is no MS test runner, so you have to kind of you gotta kind of use the xunit.dnx runner. So I've got that. I'm also going to bring in mock because I like mock, and the test host. Test host is really useful, as well as the my application, which is going to be oops, geez, I'm just a little bit too fast. I had a lot of coffee this morning. I'm going to add a reference. I'm going to add the API, and that should add it right here, stockpile API, mock, and Microsoft test. So what do we do? Let's do a little TDD, test-driven development. Void, well, I did void create server. First we're going to see if we can't initialize the server and get everything going. Public void and test1. We're just going to create that, and that's a fact. So if I build this nicely, I should get in here in just a second a nice test, maybe. I should see in the test window some tests show up, but it's not working here. Circle back to that, I suppose. I actually want it to run web. It's the primary project. Debug. Restore packages. Oh, there was the error. Okay, so you know what I bet it is? I changed my DNVM version after I already had that open, so I gotta reopen it, I think. So DNVM is the version manager for the new DNX. It allows you to pick what's going on. Right now everything's beta. They're coming out with an RC. The RC is a bit better, but I haven't played around with it related to unit tests. I'm going to close that. I'm going to say setup already exists. DNX version. Ooh, okay. VM. This is always kind of a pain. Once you get it set, everything's great. Ba 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 ba. Sorry. Okay. So it is using that. Bit 8. Data 8. Da, 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 da. So let's open up Stockpile. So, sorry, what I was dealing with there, the newest RC of DNX that I was working with a little while ago is not compatible with the versions of XUnit that I was trying to work with. So I reverted back to the old version specifically for this, and it's my hope that we get the tests to show up here. But nope, it's still running the RC version. So I absolutely hate dealing with this. Once we get this going, everything should be good. View, other windows, command windows, dnvm. Oh my god, you gotta be kidding me. Why is it using the wrong version? Now let's take a look at, let's add a solution folder called global. Let's add an let's add an existing item called, oh, is it not in here? Usually there's a global something file. Anyways, let's circle back to that. I'm kind of ticked off because I can't figure that one out just off the top of my head here. Okay, so what do we have? We have an API. The API has an entry point. The entry point has data. So the data can be created, retrieved, updated, and deleted. CRUD. So we're going to call this data. So you go API. I don't want to complicate it with containers because it's not meant to be hierarchical in any way. So just call it data controller. So the data controller, platform handler. I'm going to comment that out. I'm going to comment that out. Now we got a logging MVC. Use web API conventions. I'm going to pull over some settings that I primarily use, like getting rid of XML and blah blah blah. Although there should really be no JSON conversions, everything's going to be stream in, stream out, GUIDs and true and false. So let's take a look at the data controller here. We have a get ID. So I'm not going to support listing all the items. That's silly. See, it uses controller name there, so this will be API data. And the ID, instead, I'm going to do a GUID, because a GUID is considerably more opaque and harder to guess. So what's going to come out is a response stream, and I don't think in the API, in the new MVC API stuff, you can just decide to return a stream. I think you actually need to create some kind of an action result. So this is from my previous one here, and I'm going to get rid of some of these, and I'm going to rename this to let's just say stream action result. Or actually, let's see. File stream result. It takes a stream. I like it. Okay, I'm not going to redefine that because apparently there is a file stream result. So, file stream result should be a file result cool. So let's do a little bit of pseudocode here. Find by GUID, and you pass the ID in, and that'll give you a stream S new stream S. And then we're going to return new file stream result, and that is going to be a stream. And media type header value, let's go media type header value parse, new media, media type header value. I'm just going to actually say application binary. I think that's what it is. Oh, it's octet stream. Duh. Is there one for application octet stream? No, it seems like we have to parse it. Which it'll do that for me. So, also what I'm going to do, public class base controller. There we go. This way I can provide things protected, data access stuff. And what I'll have there is the factory, or I guess the storage adapter interfaces and that sort of thing. That gives us the ability to do stuff. So post is actually going to take let's take a look at a couple of other things. So I've already pretty much done this for the most part. Upload data action result. Those are for file streams. By the way, this project is available on my GitHub as well as Cult of Ojibwe. It is I'd like to tease the storage adapter piece out of it and put it into this other project. So then this is storage agnostic. It just talks to this other project and everything. I don't know why that's important, but kind of is to me. So HTTP request message. It looks like we can do this. So when you're posting data, I can make it take an HTTP request message. There we go. Failed to add NuGet package. Yay! You guys are awesome. So that should show up, but it's not. System.net HTTP. Just take a look here. Okay, so this is being a little finicky, but I'll show you how to deal with that. Assemblies system.net HTTP. There we go. So when you post a HTTP message, what's going to end up happening is we can take the request. This is putting data. Do I not even use that anymore? Retrieve it. HTTP context. The HTTP context, I actually think it's okay, here it is. So yeah, I got to do a little funsy onesie stuff here because just the way this is instantiated and that sort of thing. So it looks like actually when you post, you don't need to post anything. Library manager. Whoops. This is kind of the way that I do it. HTTP context. There we go. Implement missing member. Okay, and what I'm doing here is I'm setting up stuff for where's app? I'm setting up stuff for doing dependency injection. Now, there's a different way to do that, but since it's a prereq for the controller, what I'm doing is controller factory, default controller factory, get rid of the provider because I don't need that. I will need the sync lock. Controller activator, data provider, don't need that. Provider. Create instance type and HTTP context. So essentially what this is doing is we're setting up a controller factory, and we're going to override that in our setup. So what happens is this controller factory will call create controller for the action request. It's going to determine the controller action descriptor, and if we can extract the type out of the controller action descriptor, and it is a subclass of base class, that means that we need to pass in our data provider. Did I? Oh, fuck. Wrong file. Don't mind me just doing everything I just did a second ago over again. Okay, so what I'm going to do, just like I have in my other one here, startup. In the startup, we can use the configure MVC options to, we add a singleton to the service. That's how you do it. So service, add MVC. Before I add MVC, I'm going to add a singleton, and I'm going to add this controller factory. So the controller factory is added, then MVC is added. I'll deal with that later because I might not have to do any of the stuff. I may add authentication providers and stuff like that, but we're going to add logging just for the hell of it. So we got the logging factory stuff there. So use MVC. Use MVC. Not going to use WebSockets. Okay. All right. So we have this startup class. We're going to add logging. We're going to add a singleton. What that's going to do is replace the current iController factory with our controller factory. And then we're going to add MVC, which is going to bring in all of our controllers. So our controller factory will be moved to a new file called controller factory. Our base controller is going to be moved to a new file called base controller. And here is where we will use this stuff now. So let's rudimentarily define a storage abstraction layer. And I'm just going to pull the one that I have here because it's pretty basic, storage adapter. So here we have a storage adapter, create takes a stream, read returns a stream. The key, instead of key, we're going to use, well, I'm going to keep it a string because a string is a very kind of value that can be very arbitrary. If I specify a GUID, it means that everything has to be stored as a GUID. If I use AWS, they represent theirs not as a GUID, but as a big key of some sort. So update's going to take the key and the string, it's going to find the old one, delete's going to take the key, return a bool, exist's going to determine whether or not it exists. So I have my storage adapter interface now. I don't really need a storage adapter just yet, but let's do protected iStorage adapter, storage adapter, and I'm going to specify a getter and not a setter because who needs a setter on that? So the way that I did storage adapters before was I created a storage adapter factory in the getter, and I have a private storage adapter here. Storage adapter. So the storage adapter looks something like that. And let's go ahead and pull the storage location factory and add that as well. But I'm not going to call that storage location factory. I'm going to call it storage adapter factory. So the storage adapter factory uses a concurrent dictionary of string, which will be the adapter type name, and the storage adapter. Now the adapters can exist in external libraries, and we'll see that in a minute. This just reminds me that in order to make this more extensible, I actually need yet another class library. We'll call this one stockpile.sdk. So the software development kit is going to actually contain the interfaces required for this. So we're going to pull the storage adapter and storage factory out of this assembly because we don't want someone to have to reference the API in order to create a plugin for the API. We want them to reference our software development kit. So what I'm going to do here is import all of this stuff. Runtime abstractions. This failed to get NuGet's really awesome, isn't it? So we'll move that to its own file. We'll move the storage adapter factory to its own file. The library manager, that'll kind of work itself out in just a second here. So I just upgraded ReSharper, and it seems to not handle this very well. So let's take a look at the project.json. Where is abstractions? Oh, I should look at my current SDK project file. Huh. It's not in there. So now the stockpile API, I'll come back to that again there, is going to reference the SDK. So the SDK here does that. It's going to do a little restoring stuff. It's going to tell me library manager cannot be found. Whoops. Reference and use. So Microsoft DNX runtime abstractions. Add package runtime abstractions. RC. There. That's actually what I want. Although it doesn't seem to have worked very well. So this is just, nope, there it goes. This is just kind of the BS that you have to deal with when dealing with these very finicky just link, these very finicky I guess beta builds. So we have a concurrent dictionary called the adapter cache, which has a string and a storage adapter interface. We're going to use that to hold our adapter so we don't have to reload the library, because loading the assembly using reflection, that can be quite expensive. What do we do when we load the adapter? We are going to use the library manager, which is a built-in DNX construct used to kind of manage the libraries that may not be loaded but are referenced by the project. Everything kind of happens runtime with DNX. You can build DLLs and NuGet packages and whatnot, but essentially when you run it, it performs the build and then executes it. So using the library manager, we can look up the library by the assembly name, and we get back the assembly. Well, what we get back is a library which has a list of assemblies by the assembly name. We get the assembly name, and we can use the assembly load method to load the assembly by the assembly name object. After that, we have ourselves the actual assembly object, which is an assembly. We can create a type of iStorage interface and find whether or not the current adapter assembly has any iStorage interface adapters or concrete implementations of the iStorage adapter. So we find any interface types that are assignable by the type that we're looking for. We find all the types that are assignable from, yeah, you got it. It's inverted there. So we take the types, we grab the first or default, and if it's null, then we couldn't find anything. Otherwise, we go ahead and use the activator to create an instance, and we pass in our connection string. So the connection string is going to be some structured data that the storage adapter uses. Maybe it's going to be an AWS bucket, ID, value, key, whatever you need, or it's going to be just a file system location or something like that. So you choose, this is just an opaque value that we pass to you. The connection string is going to be stored and utilized at runtime. So we have an adapter interface at this point when we return it. So let's take a look at who uses the storage adapter factory in the base controller. So we have an iStorage adapter now, and we have a storage adapter factory which uses config values here and here. We haven't yet defined our config stuff, so how do we do that? Well, let's use this as a learning experiment. I've been using static configuration objects as a way to not have to learn about configuration dependency injection in ASP.NET 5. Configuration dependency injection. I hope I spelled that right. Sure. Blah 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 blah. Blah 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 blah. Not a good one. I've seen better. Project service. I want configuration. Ooh, this guy's good. Foo service. I don't want a service. There's some built-in configuration object already set up. Okay, well, maybe I'll do it my way. Okay, so in my base controller, I have access to the HTTP context, which is important because it's no longer, it's there, but it's not always populated correctly when using the test adapter. It's missing a lot of stuff. So what I do is when I create the controller, I use the test adapters, you know, whatever's present at that point, and provide it to it. That's just kind of a workaround. Maybe it'll get better, or maybe it won't. Who knows? We have the library manager, which is provided to us automagically, I believe. I don't think I have to do anything. Yeah. Let's take a look at the startup here. Nope, 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 nope. So configuration builder, JSON config file. There. Let's look that up. ASP.NET 5 configuration. Let's take a look at how this is used. Configuration builder, get some key, config, set some key. There's our config built in, blah blah blah. There's how you add it to the startup. So options, my options. There we go. This is the right way to do it. So what you do is, let's take a second here to create a class, public class, stockpile options, and let's say public string storage adapter, public string storage adapter connection string. Okay, so we got these two options here, and in our home controller, it's not quite compatible with configure services. Configure services. Well, let's give it a shot. See how it goes. Services configure stockpile options. Configuration. Do that configuration builder. No. Okay. Let's just grab this for a second. File exists. Sure. So if there's a config.json, go ahead and load it. Otherwise, we're going to use that. There we go. So now I can set environmental variables called storage adapter and storage adapter connection string, and they'll automatically be populated in my stockpile options object, which I can hopefully see. Here's a problem though. I'm using this controller factory to create stuff. Old. Okay, so my problem is my two approaches are incompatible with each other. Let's, for the sake of it, trust that the HTTP context will be populated correctly. That means I don't have to set it. That means my base controller can take a set of options. Stockpile options. Stockpile options, in which I can, if stockpile options is not null, private stockpile options, stockpile options. Stockpile options value is equal to stockpile options. Ta-da! So now we can use that in lieu of that. There we go. And that can be read-only. Whoa! Oh, yeah, actually, you guys might not be able to read any of that. All right, so what next? We have a base controller. We are injecting some options using dependency injection. Stockpile options can be moved to their own location. We get our configuration through environmental variables or the config. We pass it to the application by passing the configuration to configure stockpile options. It'll just interpolate those values into the correct places, or the theory is. No longer need a controller factory because we're going to just trust that everything works. And that's not finding something for some reason. I forget why. Oh, actually, I think I know why, but let's take a look here. Okay, so I've got some issues there. So I can't write unit tests just yet, but I really want to. My stockpile SDK is coming along nicely. I like to organize things into interfaces. So there's nothing in the SDK, but later on we'll turn it into something that wraps the REST API and makes it a little bit easier. The API test doesn't work yet. Stockpile options. Let's just create a new folder here. This is all just kind of clean up stuff here. Stockpile options, app startup, base controller, controller factory. Controller factory can probably go. So we have a base controller and a data controller and a storage adapter factory in the SDK. Let's go ahead and close all documents. Okay, so let's take a look at this here. When we get something, we're going to return a file stream result. File from stream. We no longer need this constructor. Because we have a new constructor that we need. There we go. So get, post, put, delete. The put GUID, delete, GUID, bool. Return false until I can make it work. So you post, it's going to say, yep. Oh, actually, the post is going to return a GUID, so you know what to post, or what you posted. Okay. I may create a user context object that gets injected into the controller as well if you specify some header values like a key or something like that. Essentially, I want people to be able to use this without having to register, and that just makes it a little bit more simple. This is just a microservice in a way. Okay, so let's just test what this does here. This isn't going to compile, so let's do that. It totally does. Oh, it's that core again. What did I tell you? See? DNX core. Always giving you problems. Okay, so yeah, that's because I'm still running the old version. Now this is where I have to figure out why that's not working. So I'm going to close all this out here. So my problem is the DNX in my path is referencing beta 8 there, but as soon as I open it in Visual Studio, for some reason it's still referencing the newer RC2, which is very unstable at the moment. It's a dev build of RC2. I don't want the Visual Studio command prompt. I want a command prompt in Visual Studio. Visual Studio command prompt. Really? No, I didn't think so. External tools. Oh, nice. Tools, external tools. Create GUID sucks. I should replace that with a better Create GUID. Call this command prompt. Command. Let's use this. Arguments. Initial directory. Fields such as project directory. Use output window. See if that works. Tools, command prompt. That was weird. DNX. So DNVM is always there. Okay. See, it's still running RC2. Visual. Sorry, I'm not an expert at this. Studio switch to the next version. It's just not code. I did this and it worked, and then like I don't know how to change it back. Oh, I think Visual Studio will use the default. That's what it is. So because that says default, yeah. Oh. Whoops, maybe that was telling me. Use none. Ew, what? Alias latest, oops. Default 1.0.0 beta 8. DNVM list. There we go. DNVM use default. DNVM list. Ta-da! I wonder how you remove that one that I just created. Okay, so very sorry. Setup. This is just kind of a pain in the ass. It's because they're supporting a continuous rolling. Anyone can be like, oh, I want to switch versions, and that's great, but it's just kind of difficult making it do what you want it to do. So, okay, let's take a look here. All right. If I build it, we should see in the build, hopefully, stuff happening. If I run it, oh, beta 8, perfect. Ignore that, but the service is running. I use Postman, localhost API / data. We're going to get, this should, oh, that's actually a put. Odd that it did not do what I wanted it to do. Get. Should get a 404 here. No auth. Remove that. Remove that. Oh, it's localhost port 5000. There we go. So here we got a 404 not found because we didn't specify a magic GUID. I'm just going to grab a random GUID from my last tests. GUID get. We should break. Okay, so application services HTTP context. So this is what I mean here. The HTTP context is not being injected properly. This, oops, quick watch this. So we have action context, but no HTTP context. So the action context is a model state, nothing that we want. Yeah. So that's one of the issues here. I need access to the HTTP context, but I don't have it. ASP.NET 5 context. How to properly inject. Add transient query service values HTTP context. Query value service. If you're trying to access HTTP, then you can use iHTTP context accessor for this purpose. Perfect. That's exactly what I need. So I just need to create a transient service and inject it. Query value service. Instead, I'm going to call this public class HTTP context service. Private read-only HTTP context accessor CTOR HTTP context accessor get value. Ta-da! Okay, so we take that, throw it in its own thing, jump over to startup, and we add this dot add transient. So add transient HTTP context service. Now in the base controller, I can also have service no. Actually, So I don't know if you saw that a second ago. I was just able to use the refactor in ReSharper, and suddenly I can't. I don't understand that. Okay, so this is a little slower than I thought it was going to be to get going here. But essentially, if the HTTP context service is not null, we're going to go ahead and set it. If the value is available, we're going to use it to check out other things. So, if I am correct, that should be available now. And we can use Postman to try once again. This time, the HTTP context service is available, and we have access to the default context. So now I can extract a logger factory, I can create a logger, and I can extract the library manager and create the library manager. And hey, look, I got stockpile options as well. So this is actually pulling environmental variables from my existing environment. You saw that I copied over the adapter configuration names and stuff like that, but that shows you that that works as well. So now we actually perform a get and we have our ID. So it looks like the general configuration is up and going. Let's just change all these to throw, not throw new, not implemented exception. So I should have some other method for like an exists as well. A quick way to determine whether it exists, since that's in the storage interface. Really, I'm just adding a layer to, an abstraction of this over a REST API. So let's clean up, check in, and then maybe we can continue. It depends. We'll just have to see. So I like that. Get rid of any usings I'm not using. Storage factory is in the SDK. Storage adapter factory. So the factory is actually only used by the API. So I'm gonna whoops. I'm going to move that refactor move back into the API. Yeah, things will be broken. We'll see. I'll fix it. It's a small application. Do. And build was successful, I guess. So let's just go through each of the files one by one. In our startup, I'll move that to there. Got rid of the usings. In our startup, we've got a configuration, we've got an environment, we build our configuration using the configuration builder, and we inject the configuration using our stockpile options by passing the configuration in there. It will interpolate the options in this using reflection to the options found in the environmental variables or the config file. We are adding a logging facility, the logger factory is provided by the DNX framework, and just our entry point will load that up. Then we add a transient service called the HTTP context service. I'm going to adapt this into my other application because this is a really better way to do it. Then we're going to add MVC. When we call configure, we're going to configure our logging facility. In this event, I would typically add like a log4net logger. This guy here has a, whoops, well, I just closed this. Nope, this guy here has a great how-to on it. This guy's really awesome when it comes to ASP.NET 5. He just added something for logging right here. Yeah, log4net, which is very useful. So we'll do that later. But after that's all configured, everything works. And so we take a look at our options. Our options, I'll put that into app as well. The factory is already in app. So the factory has a static concurrent dictionary of adapter caches. There may be ways to specify multiple adapters. Maybe I'll make it so you can specify an adapter that is stored in the header somewhere. So if you want like faster storage, you can say, yeah, super fast storage. Or if you want slower or long-term persistent storage, you can do that. So what I'm going to do is turn this into a microservice at some point, and hopefully everything works out really nicely. Here I've got the first controller. Well, this is the base controller. So controller base, and that just provides some protected objects, library manager, storage adapter, context service, and options. The options shouldn't be needed in the upper classes, but we can change that later. The data controller, very simple: get, post, put, delete, basic CRUD. And the context service is also very straightforward. Now, use an expression body. That's all super new. Maybe later. Project JSON, everything looks fine there. API test. Oh, there's my tests. So now I can actually start writing tests for this. So let's write one really quick here before I decide to check this in. So create test service. I'm actually going to copy the parameters that I had specified here in my other application. I know that the test is going to need to reference the stockpile API. So it looks like that's already good there. So let me take a look here. So what I'll be able to do is develop some really decent integration tests, because the test server actually allows me to get a handler, an HTTP handler, and inject it into a client, or get a client back. So I create a client and I inject it into my SDK, allowing me really decent everything else. So test server, do that, and it looks like test server. So for the first thing, our test server is equal to create test server. Is this a, typically, yeah, there we go. So let's just kind of do this. Test server dot create client, our client. So this is an HTTP client now. I can say client dot send async, and then I can create my request messages that way. So this will run all in process. It'll load our application through the startup, and we should be able to client.get async request URI. Let's do instead, yeah, client.get async. I shouldn't have to specify a base address. I believe it gets that. So just looking, I always forget which slash is API/data. slash 0, we'll do a string format, id GUID ID is equal to GUID.new GUID, just to kind of test that this does what we think it does. And then the result. So we change our async method into a non-async method. So what this will allow you to do now is you can set, because it all runs in the same process, you can set a breakpoint in there, and you can set a breakpoint in here. So when you debug your test, it should create a test server, create a client, generate a new ID, and execute. And now we should get that ID in here, and we can actually do some really thorough testing, which is very nice. So if you would like to continue to follow along, I'm going to check this in really quick, and you can check it out and use it yourself. So let's see, Team Explorer, GitHub, Stockpile, changes. Looks like I've got a lot, and we're just going to call this, I want that added. You know what? I want a GitHub ignore Visual Studio file, because these are quite useful. And then so I don't have an ignore in here. There we go. Okay, so our initial commit, so it did ignore everything that it was supposed to. And commit and push. Committed locally, now we're trying to push, and we pushed. So now, if you care to follow along and try this yourself, we got ourselves a bit of stuff here. So what I'm going to do next is show you how easy it is to run this in Linux. Blah, 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 blah. What did I call that here? I liked what I called it here. Solution items, I guess. So solution items, and then actually notepad Dockerfile. So Dockerfile doesn't exist. So let's take a look at what I'm doing here. Since this will be stored with it, I don't need to do any of that. I don't need to clone it into a working directory. I actually just need to add or copy let's take a look at the ASP.NET home they've got some Dockerfile examples. Theirs are fairly straightforward and simple, so let's just take a look here, because they do it in the correct order. So let's get rid of all of this. Let's just copy, instead of project.json, I'm going to say there it is. Copy stockpile.api/project.json to opt stockpile slash project. Let's try that. So that'll copy that into there. Won't need any other stuff. Worker opt stockpile run the restore copy stockpile API to opt stockpile. Project JSON configuration release Kestrel DNX project JSON exposed port 5000, I believe, is the port. So it actually doesn't specify a port here. They must have changed that a little bit. Oh well. You can specify a port, but it seems like the default is 5000. I might be mistaken. Okay, so Dockerfile created. And move Dockerfile to Dockerfile with no extension. dir. There it is. Okay, so git status, git commit a, git add Dockerfile, commit a, initial commit of Dockerfile. Okay, so what do we do now? Well, let's take a look at our Docker host and take a look at our repository, stockpile. I'm going to copy that and we'll say git clone stockpile. Okay, there it is. And Docker build. Oh. Did I put the Docker? Oh, you know what? I never did. Git push. Git push. Pull. Git status. All right. There we go. Docker build. Blah. Pulling all the resources. So now, did that just say unresolved, unable to locate Docker dependency stockpile SDK? That's not good. Oh, you know what? Since it depends on the SDK, we need to do a little bit of editing. Let's take a look back at our Docker something or another here. Notepad, Dockerfile. I could just do it on there, but I'm going to do it here. So here's our little problem. stockpile .api, copy stock SDK. Okay. Linux. Case sensitive. So here we do a DNU restore once we switch our working directory, and so we do the 2 copies first, switch our working directory to that, and then to API. Then we copy to stockpile API, SDK, SDK. Okay, so we're going to do 2 DNU restores, one on the SDK, which will provide the reference required, and then one on the API, which will consume that reference. And then we copy the actual code files over top of it, which will be compiled when we run the DNX. So git status, there we go, git commit a changes to fix dependencies. Okay, and git push. I should really cache my credentials, because I hate doing that. Git pull, and it's docker build present directory. Cannot make directories, not a directory. Stockpile SDK. Opt stockpile SDK. Huh. You would think it would make it. Ah. Just going to do it here. You know, I'm always curious to this. If I do that, is it going to... There we go. So adding that slash, crazy, huh? I was just developing and running on Windows, and now I'm going to develop and run on Linux. All in the same video, all in the same 2 hours. It's just that easy now. Maybe. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. And close this out because I'm going to just commit the changes on here. But looks like we should be very close. Crossing my fingers. Okay, so Docker PS. I've already got a bunch of containers running on here, but Docker run. And it's just going to run interactively. Ugh. Web. That's a little problem there. Take a look. Okay, that is the command web. Oh, Kestrel. Is this one called Kestrel? That one called web? Oops. I see. Oh. So this Kestrel, you can specify your own commands and it'll call whatever it calls. This loads up the ASP.NET hosting library, specifies the server ASP.NET Kestrel, the same as running as the web. Although the web is going to run with default parameters, this one's going to run with specific parameters. I want specific parameters because you can specify the port at that point. So let's just edit private.json again. And in our web here, do this, and I'm actually going to say 5,000, and I'm going to rebuild it. It's going to go a little bit slow this time, but not too bad. Sweet. Wonder if anyone's even watching this. Okay, so now let's try. Okay, we can just run it interactively. It should show that it's running on this port. It should say server started, port that. So now I should be able to go to 192.168.15,000 API data. Blah. And it should actually refuse the connection. Interesting. It shouldn't refuse the connection. This is always fun. Oh, sure it should. Why wouldn't it refuse the connection? I should have ran this interactively too, because wrong password. Because I didn't run it interactively, it's not listening to my keystrokes, and because I didn't forward the port properly, it's not forwarding the port properly. So what I really need to do is run this as IT with a P and say 5,000 to 5,000. That way, when I go like this, ta-da, it technically worked with a status of 400, which is kind of what I expect. Now, I could add the error page stuff, but I'm not going to do that. So that is the Docker portion of this. Git status, git status, yeah, okay, git commit some projects and Docker file. Push. There you go. So now, I'm just going to pull those. And take a look and reload all that fun stuff, and should have our new stuff there. Okay, so let's actually start to do some neat stuff. So in the SDK, maybe I should add secondary adapter classes. Yeah, probably. Well, let's take a look here. Git. Okay, so let's say it's up to your application, whoever's consuming this, to store the ID values. If I'm always going to return a GUID, I need a way to, I guess, look up that GUID, do GUID to persistent layer storage interpolation. So my GUID is my GUID. Whatever storage adapter it's stored in, well, we'll figure that out. So what do I do? What do I do? I need some sort of a database that's going to hold that information for me. I want this as lightweight as possible. I wonder if Redis is persistent. I think it is. Using Redis cache. .NET Redis in process database. I have my own kind of NoSQL, but I don't trust it. It's based on Lucene. You'll see it on my GitHub. It's called Lucandrew. Redis self-hosted. Self-hosting. Sorry, I saw how to do this once, and I probably should have saved it, but I didn't. Stack Exchange. So I've never used Redis, really. I spun up a server once. In process key value store, C#. Maybe I won't use Redis. Are there any key value stores used? RaptorDB? I don't want to use something bulky. I want just basic. But it needs to be persistent in some manner. Get cache server, get cache client. In-memory cache developed C# persistence key value store. Lightweight persistent key value store. No. Scalable. Binary range. Best way of storing in a database. You know, binary range. Serializable. Let's create a new class, an interface called iDataAccess. And in the data access interface, public data access. For this, we need a we're going to need simple CRUD for the metadata about the data. So we're storing files, but we need some sort of way to store lookup information about the files. I'm going to call this GUID, or wait, let's see what my data access layer looked like in Ojibwe. Public interfaces, data provider. I'm going to call it data provider. Okay, so I have a model. Data access. I like data provider better. Okay, and models class. And we'll call this stock file. Stock. So in a stock pile, you have stock. Yeah, that'll do. So stock. Public string storage adapter. Public string. So I'm going to say that each file stored can be stored in a different storage adapter, and it can be stored with a specific storage adapter connection string. That way, I can have a tenanted system in a manner. Storage adapter connection string, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. I might remove that. Public GUID ID. And well, let's not make that too complicated. Public string external storage ID or key, external storage key. So the ID is going to be our ID that we look up in the external storage key. This is just a quick one-to-one mapping, but we'll have to develop a way to do this a little better here. So let's call this stock, or let's say stock create stock pool stock retrieve stock GUID ID stock ID. bool update stock. With ID. Let's do that the other way. With ID. Stock. Bool delete stock. With ID. So, the create's going to populate the ID value and return a stock object. The retrieve is going to return a stock object by ID, and that's all we really need. So my data provider interface is very simple. Let's say that we now want to add a data provider. Add a class. I'm going to make a new project. I know this gets a little complicated. I like to really keep everything siloed. Stockpile data provider, and let's loose Andrew. Yeah. Let's use my application, which I'll have to port over. This is just getting really complicated really fast. So, loose Andrew data provider. Sure. And let's take a look here. So I have this NoSQL implementation called Loose Andrew. It's very simple, so I'm just going to I'll just clone it. So this is based off of Lucene.net, which is it's an indexing platform. Very fast and powerful. It's by Apache. And we're going to serialize our objects into JSON objects. So our object is very plain and simple. It should serialize easily. There's nothing special we got to do about that. There we go. And then the object reference is going to be new item. Object reference. So the object reference and the object reference. Okay, so how is this used? I've already forgotten. Let's take a look at one of the tests. So we initialize a database and database store. Okay, so the store method does what it needs to do. Okay, so now in our data provider we can create a database object. Private database equals new database. In our provider, we can take a string, connection string, and we can create a private let's just have it return a database. IntelliSense is so slow. Okay, so connection string is going to be, the connection string is just going to be the path where the database is stored. So return new database and say, well, let's make it a little explicit here. Var path is equal to connection string. Now, let me look at I've got a file system storage adapter that I created for this one, and let me just look at how I parsed that, because I liked the parsing logic. It's parse connection string. Ah, I see. Root path. So then I just have a public string root path get set private set. There we go. So data. So the connection string is going to look like this. And so parse connection string, and then we're going to initialize the database, which does not take a connection string. Just if root string dot is null or white space root path, then I'm going to throw new application exception could not determine root path. Otherwise, we're going to root path. And let's take a look at that logic just to make sure. What do? We set our path and do all this stuff. So probably a good way would be to, if directory dot exists, I think it's path dot exists. Stupid DNX core again. Okay. Exists. If it does not exist, directory dot create system.io directory create directory path. Okay, and this is I gotta specify the whole thing because Lucene has a directory as well. Okay, so I already did all this fun jazz before, and it should generally work. I don't know how fast it's going to be, but this will. So add reference to the SDK since ReSharper doesn't know how to do it. Thanks, ReSharper 10. You could do it fine in 9. And those are our options. So create stock. Database.store T object returns an object reference. Let's take a look at this here. Because the object reference has an ID. Oh, okay. We're going to ignore the so there's a couple layers of GUIS that'll be passed around here, but store stock and var object reference. Let's see what the retrieve is. Okay. Stock. There's got to be a better way to do this. Search query. Get query from object. Then for each key value pair. Dictionary string. So what I would want to do long term is turn this into a an expression, a query expression. So you could just say like this equals that, but I'm not going to get into that at this time. Instead, I'll just create an anonymous type and pass it in there. It'll find that field, and then you know, it knows that it's searching for a stock object. Var retval. So this will be a list of them. Return retval dot first or default. First or default. Oh, it's object reference dot object. If retval is null, return null. If reference is null, return null. Return reference.object. So it's going to say use null propagation. Use null propagation. That's all new stuff. Just for compatibility, I try to not use that. So create stock is going to say stock stock.id is equal to GUID.newGUID. And then we're going to store the object. That's going to return an object reference, and return object reference.object. And that should be the object. Retrieve, we're just retrieving by an anonymous type, populating the ID, we don't care what else is in it. And then update is going to stock existing stock retrieve stock by ID. If existing stock is equal to null, return false. Else we will oh no, actually what I need to do here is database.search. So update takes the reference, yeah, search stock new ID is equal to ID of our existing reference. Then I say if existing reference is null, return false. Then existing reference dot our existing references our existing reference is equal to existing references dot first or default. If existing reference is null, also return false. Else existing reference dot object is equal to stock. Oh, they can't set that, huh? Has no setter. Update. Oh no, it's object dot external storage key is equal to stock dot external storage key. That's the only property. Should have a way to replace the object completely, but I guess missed that one. Existing reference dot update and return true. Does the update? Yeah, whatever. Close enough. Let's just do all this. And existing reference dot delete. True. Okay, so that's our persistent storage layer. Really curious to see if it works. So the data provider looks pretty good. Can I build that? Oh, cold path. So here we go. Then you restore. Close all. Sometimes it gets a little finicky to generate new lock files. Yeah, I didn't think that would work. There we go, build succeeded. Okay, so we have a persistent layer. Let's wire that up. What I'm going to do is services, oops, add singleton of, I forget how to do this. I doubt we've got anything here. Nope. Type of I data provider, comma, let's go ahead and Google around for that one because I forgot how to do it. Let's do the dependency injection one. Ow. So there's the repository. Repository activate. This doesn't seem right. Scoped. Add an instance. Cool. So might be approaching this incorrectly. I have access to the options through my stockpile options. So why doesn't my base controller create a data provider dynamically? Protected on data provider, get return private on data provider. Okay, so the connection string is actually stockpile options dot connection string. Yay! I could create a factory to dynamically create a data provider as well, but who wants to do that? Not me. Okay, so that's good. So now finally getting to the controller where we get var stock is equal to data provider dot retrieve stock by ID. Now I have a stock using our ID, and I can call storage adapter dot read using the stock dot external storage key. Var stream is now going to return file stream result new stream comma application octet stream. Is that application octet stream? Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Should be as easy as that. Pretty clean interface, huh? So, when we post, we create one. Let's do data pro. Well, I actually need to take a look at how I did that before. Pretty sure it was easy. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. There's the request body. So I'm just going to copy that asynchronously to a temp file stream, which stream utilities get temp file. It's a really useful utility to have. I'm just going to throw it in my base controller. The idea was this was supposed to be simplistic, very simplistic. Why is there an attempt count? Oh, this was something stupid that I... Oh, that's... yeah. Let's not do that. Just keep it simple. So if path is null, we're gonna. If path is not null, we're gonna combine the path with a random. Wait a second. If path is not null, oh geez, skip temp file name. Well, that's a bug, and the file shouldn't exist. This is delete on close temp stream, which is good because I can buffer and then write to the storage location easily. So var temp stream get temp file stream, then context dot request body dot copy async to temp stream using temp stream storage adapter dot create temp stream. So it should probably rewind it, but 0. Make sure. Wait. Sync. Var storage key. Data provider. This is where I create a new stock object. Stock is equal to new stock. Stock.external storage key is equal to storage key. And that is when I decide to, it's my storage adapter. Oh, I haven't even defined a storage adapter yet. Have I? No. That is where I will say data provider dot create stock var equals there. Oops. So now I can return stock.id, and all is well in the cosmos. There we go. So it's awaitable. So it'll sit here, do whatever it needs to do, but also service other things. Put. See, we're getting closer here. I told you we'd be able to do this all in one fellow swoop, for the most part. Put. Let's do the same exact thing. So put is going to copy the body stream to the temp file async. It's going to, instead of create, it's going to storage adapter create, storage adapter update. Yeah, I guess. Data provider dot retrieve stock by ID var stock is equal to stock, and we say storage adapter dot update stock dot external storage key. Now I should be checking for nulls and all that. Temp stream. So I shouldn't have to do anything else there. Now, what do we do? Data provider dot delete stock. Well, var stock data provider dot retrieve stock ID. Then I can say storage adapter dot delete stock dot external storage key var success, and we can then say data provider dot delete stock ID success, and it together, and return success. That way, if it fails, it'll fall through this and return false right away. Ta-da! You got yourself a storage abstraction layer, containerized and everything. Now I need to fix the Docker files and stuff like that, but let's see what happens when we run this build. Localhost. Hi, Katie. It's my dog. She's a dog. We're going to post this with a body that's raw, and we're just going to put a bunch of gibberish in there. Whoops. And, okay, so temp file stream. Copy the temp file stream. Hey, look, we got data. It's in use by another process. It's because I have sharing off. We are going to, in the storage adapter, probably threw an exception, huh? Never completed because I don't think we have a storage adapter. Not done yet. Oh. Okay, I forgot about that. Let's create a storage adapter quick. Data providers. I'll drag that into there. And storage adapters. We'll create a new project class library called stockpile.storageadapter. File system. Just 1 second. Oh. Okay. Actually, I don't even know why I'm wearing these. I'm not listening to music. Probably to keep my hair under control. Let's go ahead and add a reference to the SDK so we can get the storage adapter interfaces. Change this to file system storage adapter. So I'm going to just copy over the storage adapter that I had used in my last project for file system. Whoops. There we go. And that should make this implementation just a little bit easier. Storage adapters. So I've got Amazon S3 as well. It follows the same basic interface too. So file system adapter. Sure. File system storage adapter. Like that. Change the namespace. There we go. Change this to EB. This is a cross-process wait handle. So if I'm on a Linux system or a Windows system and I've got multiple processes running and I'm load balancing across them, when they take a lockout on the index file, the descriptor file that will be the holder of the next value, the processes can wait on each other, the two processes. And that's an event wait handle, a named event wait handle, actually. Keep that in mind. It's very useful. So, storage adapter, file system, storage adapter. Let's go ahead and build that. Looks like it was successful. This takes a very common format for the connection string. But okay, so let's make my API reference the storage adapter. And there we go. So now in the API. Web.config, let's look at my startup. Config.json. Let's create a config.json file. Ooh, but the environmental variables are going to override. Okay, so for this test, curious if this works too. I've tried it before and I had some odd issues with it. I'm going to say Kestrel. I'm going to say Kestrel. And sorry here. Take a look at this. Let's add storage adapter. Let's call this stockpile storage adapter file system. Oh, my dog wants to go outside. Can you believe that? Hang on, Katie. Just a second. I'm coming. I'm a-coming, Katie Doo. I'm a-coming. Here I come. I'm coming, Katie Doo. Here I come. I think you just want to play outside, but who really knows? So here I come. Don't ring the bell again. Let's just try that. See what happens. I'll be right back. What? You want? What do you want? All right. The dog has gone out. Okay, so let's try this again. Send. Okay, we get this. Storage adapter. Ooh, a file system storage adapter. Look at that. Got a storage key of 1. Stockpile, external storage key. I'm going to create our stock. There's our stock model. It's got a new GUID. We return that. So, let's see what Postman got back. Hey, it's our GUID. Not sure if I want it in quotes. Oh, it's coming back as JSON. All right. Is that what it's really coming back as? I guess. Okay. So you can parse that. Now let's try to get the data. Get. And we do our get. We retrieve by ID. throw an exception, and everything explodes. Timeout obtained. Trying to get a lock. Okay, so here is our first problem. This database, this data provider, is creating a new database. So it's because a new instance of the controller is created per request. Isn't it? Is that using... I wonder if mine were static before, I forget. Let's see. Storage adapter. Well, that's peculiar. Oh, maybe in my storage location stuff. Well, no, we got a static version of that. .500 internal server error. Oh. Yeah. My factory returns the same instance over and over again. This, on the other hand, does not. So I don't think I can. Can I do that? I guess I can do it while it's running. Let's try that again. So I should be able to call up the same thing if persistence is working properly. Data provider. Okay. Ooh. Retrieve stock search. Red vals. Erasure return no results. It's getting sunny in here. Let's take a look at the temp directory. There's our stockpile, there's our provider. Ah! So there really wasn't anything there. It didn't flush, it didn't commit. Which may be an issue with the provider. Look at that. Okay. Let's try it again. Send. That seemed to have worked. Check reference. That's the ID. Hey, how was your... No. Probably not a sandwich from yourself.
No, we didn't go to Lister's. It was so busy.
Who always is?
Mine is out the door.
So,
No, it's already.
yes. No way. Not yet. I got carried away with this thing. Super cool though. Yeah. I'm almost done. Possibly just a couple of bugs. Okay, so my girlfriend is home and she's wondering why I didn't do anything today. Ooh. Do. Ooh. It worked. I don't even remember what I did there. I made it static. Yeah. Oh. Oh. Did that work? Yeah, let's try it again. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Well, I believe that this should work this time. Ooh, and I got a segment. Okay, so I should be able to say get. Oh no, it didn't return anything. Fuck. Something's screwy. Ooh, it overwrote it. That's why. Index writer, open path. Getting brighter in here. Um, Overwriting when new index is created. That's your false. Set to false to open an old index. doesn't exist, I create the directory, maybe index equals true. Then I can say bool create there we go. That should fix it. That happens occasionally. I don't know what that one is all about. Post. We're going to post that data. We get our GUID back. We're going to get this data. There's our data. 200 OK. It's looking pretty good. Now, go ahead and test the index recreation issue and get the data. Okay, everything's frozen. Great. Okay, well, maybe someone out there can help debug this. There seems to be an issue somewhere. And I'm too hungry to continue, so I've given you 3 hours of my life and shown you how to create a storage service layer using .NET DNX ASP.NET 5 and run it on Linux in Docker, all in 3 hours. So you're probably an expert by now. I'll check in the remaining code as soon as my Visual Studio is unfrozen, and then maybe you guys can send me some pull requests. So I'll leave it at that. Thanks.